Hey everyone, and welcome back to another edition of the Broad Podcaster with me, Jennifer Fierro, right here in the Highland Lakes, joined once more with Art Dlugach, the voice of the Llano Yellow Jackets. Art, we're going to go into week one of the Texas high school football, and that means that we have plenty of teams that will be making their 2022 debut. We're going to start with Llano County, and we'll start with the Yellow Jackets. Then we'll add in a few things about Smoking for Jesus towards the end if we have time. How's that?
Well, it's such an exciting time. Two great times of the year among the other 9 regular season games, but the first game of the season and then the first game of the playoffs. And the Jackets just couldn't be more excited about it, Jacket fans, because some 19 boys back out of the top 24 from last year. And so, of course, they just think great things ahead for the 2022 season, opening at Gerald on Friday night. First time ever that these two teams have played. And Gerald, 3-8 last season, Llano 8-3. And Gerald got whipped pretty good in the game you saw, the scrimmage against Burnett.
Yes.
So if Llano can do what Burnett did on that second scrimmage, then all will be well. But it's really a team that we don't know that much about. They are a bigger school than Llano and will be the only time this year, except for Austin Crockett, that Llano will play a team that is bigger. But going over some of these names, and of course I'm going to forget some, but during the year I will make them up. Defensive coordinator Matt Anastasio told me that in the last scrimmage, which was a great one for Llano, beating Brady 7 touchdowns to none, and he told me about the top defensive players he thought for the evening. Fitz Kennedy, Hunter Brown, a new name for the varsity, certainly new to me. Hayden Manahan, the linebacker who was Defensive District Player of the Year last year and is picked for that same honor this year by Texas Football Magazine. Brock Fly on defense, Jackson Ray, defensive end, Ulysses Martinez, and Isaiah Bush. Isaiah with the great interception as Lago Vista was threatening to beat Llano last year, down 13-10 in the final minute, and was on the Jackets 30, and Bush comes over to the sideline from the secondary to make the interception, which saves the game. Certainly one of the most outstanding plays I've seen in more than 2 decades of following Llano. So Bush gets the nod from Coach Anastasio. And just to name a few others, Ricky Delatorre is another of those 3 linebackers, Delatorre, Manahan, and Ray. Ray is now, as I said, defensive end. But these 3 will be seniors, and they've played a lot of football as sophomores and juniors. So that gives you certainly a good idea of what Llano has coming back. Kyle Gilliland, I will mention, Caden Bauman, and Parker Parrish also on the defense. On offense for Llano, Briggs Green or Bryce Mize, the starting quarterback for the Jackets at Gerald. The prevailing opinion, my opinion, Coach Green wants me to say, is that it is not his yet, but I will say Briggs Green will get the job. An outstanding runner in that backfield with 2 other superb runners in Miguel Hernandez, who must have run for close to 200 yards, if you can imagine that, in the scrimmage against Brady, and Carson Kirkendall, who ran for 1,000 yards, close to 1,000 yards last year. So those are I've kidded Coach Green ever since last season that the Jackets ought to run the wishbone. Well, of course, they're not going to do that. But But with Briggs and those two, that's a lot of threats on the ground. Now, the receiving core is so experienced too. Ross Prokop, Sam Sultanfuss probably will not play in the first two games against Gerald and Burnett on October 2nd, and that's a home game, and boy, get to that game early. Jackson Dillard, another fine receiver with plenty of experience from last year, and those will be three of the main ones. Llano will have one or two others for sure that will be able to catch the ball from Briggs Green or Bryce Mize. The linemen for the Jackets, there's more experience there. Daniel Sandoval, Hudson Godfrey, Juice Lang, Ross Edwards, Brandon Green, and Dylan Kennedy. So Dylan and Fitz Kennedy are twins, and their dad, Joe Kennedy, defensive line coach for the Jackets. So that gives you a pretty good rundown of the youngsters who will, you will hear their names a lot on KITY radio if you're not able to see those games in person. And I might be leaving out a receiver or two, but Prokop and Sultanfuss, with so much experience from last year. Coy Kelso, I'm so glad I remembered his name. I love to give this stat. Caught 12 balls last year, not many, 5 for touchdowns. So there you go. Coach Matt Green in his 6th year as head coach for Llano. He's won 40 games, an average, of course, of 8 a season. And he is heading toward being the winningest coach in Llano history, as he needs just 4 victories to pass David Yeager. So I think that does pretty well give you an idea of what the Jackets have coming back, favored to win district by Texas football.
Okay. What do you know about Gerald?
Gerald, as I mentioned, not a good record last year, but the fact that they're a bigger school, I think, scares Llano. Again, you saw them get trumped pretty good by Burnett, which is good news for game 1 for Llano, not such good news for the second game. And also, I think they have a fine passer in Andrew Neville, and he had big stats last year, and he will be somebody for Llano to worry about in game 1.
Well, I will say this. The Gerald offense doesn't scare me. But I think a lot of that has to do with the offensive line. So let's see what the offensive line can do, because Gerald wants to run a spread offense. A spread offense, this guy talks about the great running backs over at Llano, and all of that is true. There's no question, though, Matt Green's philosophy is a spread. He is a spread offensive-minded coach. So they like to spread the ball out, meaning they'll go with 3 or 4 wideouts, maybe have 2 backs in, and have the quarterback in the gun. And they run a lot of run-pass options with the quarterback, which means then that they'll put the quarterback in space, they'll move the pocket and let him run and create plays with his legs, either by throwing the football or tucking and running if everybody's covered. That is a lot of pressure on a defense when you have to worry about a third runner coming out of that backfield. Gerald did not look like they were going to do that, and I say that in tongue-in-cheek because it was a controlled scrimmage, meaning they were not going to let any quarterback scramble because none of the quarterbacks were going to take a hit. That was the agreement between coaching staffs across the state of Texas, no matter the level. Gerald didn't wow me, but I think a lot of that may have had to do with Burnett's front 7, and that offensive line looked like they were still learning.
Well, I'm very much impressed with everything to do with Llano, as I've mentioned, and I think the defense will be able to stop Gerald. And I want to mention, too, that as fine a passer as Maddox Green, Briggs' brother, was last year, and he could run the ball, too, that with those 2 running backs running for close to 1,700 yards, that is really something special on the ground.
Yeah, especially in the spread offense that's designed
Oh,
to
yes.
to throw first. I agree, and that illustrates the commitment of the balance that Matt Green preaches.
Yes.
And what he's looking for in his offense. 7:30 in Gerald, correct?
Yes, a rare 7:30 game, because I believe 8 games this year out of 10 will start at 7.
Okay, real quick before we close out this segment and head to Burnett County, I do want to make mention of the fact that Smoking for Jesus also is playing on Friday night. They are at home against Cherokee. Cherokee is a public school. Smoking for Jesus, as we've mentioned before, changed leagues from the Texas Christian Athletic League to the Texas Association of Independent Athletic Organizations.
Very good.
So I am curious to see what the Eagles will do. I have been playing phone tag with the head coach, Charles Frazier, and trying to get something written for TexasChalkTalk.com. I will tell you that I think the Smoking for Jesus roster is every bit as experienced as the Llano roster.
State champions.
Yes, for TCAL. 2-time defending state champs in TCAL. We'll see what they do in this new organization that they are in. They've got their quarterback back. They've got their top 1 or 2 receivers back. The defense looks very poised to continue to do very well for defensive coordinator Boo Maxwell. And Russ Roberts, who we mentioned, the former head coach at Faith Academy, is now the offensive coordinator for the Eagles. They will be making their debut on Friday night, and I believe that's a 7 o'clock kickoff, I think is what I wrote. Check back with TexasChalkTalk.com, and then you'll know everything that I know as soon as I find Charles Frazier. I think we're done here with Llano County.
Yes, I'm a fan of Cherokee, and I'm a fan of Smoking for Jesus too, but Cherokee located right between Llano and San Saba. Okay. So, and they love their football there, and good luck to both of those teams.
Yeah, you bet. Okay, we're going to close segment 1 out. We're headed to Burnett County. We're going to talk about the Mustangs next because they're on a short week. Let's see what Brian Herman has in store for Marble Falls. I'm Jennifer Fierro, your broad podcaster here in the Highland Lakes. Art Dlugach, the voice of the Llano Yellow Jackets. And please make sure you like, subscribe, and share.